Well, good morning, Connor.
Good morning, Irene.
I'm saving this to see if you.
I've heard of these.
They're good.
Can we say this? What they are?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
So this is what
path water. Yeah.
Path water. I've seen these alkaline water, which I guess I don't get that.
I don't either. I
I
like the black bottle and I like the taste.
Water with electrolytes for taste.
But they've done something to their caps. I've had this bottle of water for 3 days and I can't drink it because I can't open it.
Oh God. Oh, you're not kidding. Oh, there it goes.
Oh my God, he got my water open. I can drink it. Yay!
That's not easy.
They've done something. It used to be like you would grab it and I would have to,
Yeah, you really have to yank on that. You really have to want that water. You better be thirsty.
I would have died by thirst by now because I bought it 3 days ago. But the little striations on the cap, I had those marks all over my hand. I couldn't get it open, and I asked Paul to open it, and he couldn't get it open. I'm like, well, I guess we're never drinking this water. And then this morning when I was looking for what I'm gonna make for dinner tonight, I saw it in the fridge. I'm like, I'm gonna ask Connor. I'll bet he's strong enough to open it.
Got it.
But I like it. It's decent water.
I just don't like how much it is. Did you?
Oh God, yes. That's why
expensive.
When I bought it is
I think the bottle's worth more than what's in it.
Yes, it is $4.39 now.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know if I can keep drinking path water. This is too expensive. I'm gonna go.
It's in a pretty bottle, I guess. It's all metal.
Yes.
It's almost like a bottle you should be able to refill with that kind of water.
Yes.
Right?
And there's something on the bottle here somewhere.
To do that, to like recycle
that you can keep refillable.
Oh, okay. With path water or just with your water?
With any water you want.
Well, I can do that with my plastic.
But your plastic bottle, you're getting microplastics in your body.
True. Oh, okay. So that's the gimmick. You don't have
and I've been shifting to trying to find water in cans. Mm-hmm. So that I can recycle them. But the reason I like the path water one is because I can just refill it, put the cap on it. If you open the can of water, if you spill it, your water is everywhere. And yes, I have had that experience several times. But I like this because I can reuse it many, 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 many times. And then when I can't anymore, when I can't get the bottle clean anymore, I can recycle it. Yeah. So I like that because I'm all environmental and stuff. But the last 3 that I have bought, I cannot get the lid off. And the last one, I'm not kidding, I held onto the bottle and Paul used his hands to twist the cap. We looked really pathetic trying to open a bottle
get like
of
a
water.
monkey wrench or something. Yeah.
So I was like, it felt really stupid. So I thought maybe you might be able to open my water today. But yeah, these used to be $2. When a 20-ounce bottle of water was like $1.50, I could justify the extra 50 cents because I will reuse it probably 20 or 30 times before I recycle it. But they're $4.39 now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't...
Because the metal doesn't come from here. It comes from Canada.
Yeah.
And now you have tariffs.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, folks. I'm
yeah. And I like the aluminum bottle because aluminum is our most recycled metal. So I there's a chance, I don't know, I would have to go look on their website, but there's other waters that say that they use partially recycled aluminum in their aluminum can. So I like that.
We had a wonderful dairy out in Sioux Falls where you had the old-fashioned glass dairy caps you could take back and get refilled. That was wonderful. I think we should bring that back. I think we should bring back the milkman.
Yes.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think we should bring back that whole concept.
That would be awesome. And when I was in Tanzania in 2005, all the soda and beer bottles were glass bottles with your little metal cap. And you could recycle the metal caps, but I think we just threw them away. I don't know. But you would go to the store and you would buy a 6-pack of Coke and you could see the scuff marks on the glass bottles because they had a thing right there in Dar es Salaam where you took it directly to them,
You just
and
wash off the
they
bottles in hot
clean
water
yep,
and
they
refill it back up.
Yep.
I get there's some sanitary concerns, but I think America went way overboard with the plastic thing, and now we've become a sterilized country where it's just like, guys, let's just go back to glass. Yeah. Glass is awesome.
Yep.
You can constantly break it, reuse it.
Yep.
It's like a no-brainer for me, but yeah.
Just like the eggs that you and your mom bring me, sometimes they got poop on them because.
Yeah, because they're farm fresh eggs.
Yeah, exactly. So the ones that have poop on them are usually the ones that I hard boil because the poop usually comes off while they're hard boiling. And if not, it's a hard boiled egg and you're less likely to get any kind of poop on yourself. But if I only have eggs left with poop on them and I'm making, say over easy eggs or something, you just be careful.
You just wash them.
Yeah, I clean them off.
And the only reason we don't wash them ahead of time is because there's a thin membrane on the egg that if you wash it away, you have to refrigerate it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can leave it out on your shelf. So it's more shelf stable out on the out on your shelf. It can last, I think, a month and a half. We've had eggs that last. So.
Yeah, because I know sometimes we get sick of eggs and it's like 5-6 weeks before we call you for more eggs and they're just sitting on the kitchen table.
Yeah, they're just sitting on the kitchen table.
It's not a big deal at all.
Well, for my mom, not anymore. We took care of them all last week. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
more chickens.
Yeah.
We had a slaughter party.
So they're all gone?
They're all gone, yeah. We slaughtered them all.
Really?
We still have our chickens, but they don't produce very much eggs anymore.
I thought you were just. I thought you were just doing a few. Why all of them?
I think it was time for her not to take care of them anymore.
Okay.
She has. For those who don't know, we're talking about my mom. She has like dogs, cats, animals.
Yeah, she has a lot of
menagerie of animals. The chickens are the least of her problems, so we made it not a problem at all.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to worry about them. And feed's getting expensive. That's the other thing. When you look at the eggs you get versus what you have to feed them to get it, the cost is ridiculous right now. And during winter time, just have the meat. It's very common out here anyway to do.
Yeah. So. I just thought you were doing the yearly thinning. I didn't realize she was getting rid of all of them.
Yeah, she decided to get rid of all of them. So
okay.
So you'll have to ask us for eggs.
Yeah. And then Paul will always ask me, are those Connor's eggs? Because he knows you had roosters.
Yeah.
And
we got rid of one of our roosters too, so we only got one now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's always terrified that there's going to be something in his eggs, that it won't just be a regular egg. And I'm like, it's the luck of the draw, Paul. We've never had it happen. We're okay.
Really? Yeah, we've had it happen quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No,
because you've been getting it from Mom's. Mom doesn't have a rooster.
That's true. Yeah, we
you
got
get it from us. Yeah, it's going to definitely be the luck of the draw.
I think it was 3 or 4 times we got from you. The rest of the time was from her. So
something might be peaking.
Yeah.
We still kept our rooster. We still kept Johnny, and Johnny's still with the hens. That's
okay.
They're a family. So.
There you go. So there you go, folks. We're still doing things the old-fashioned way here. Look at our cats. They just look like they're all tuckered out and they're about ready to die themselves. And they haven't done anything today, but
they never do anything.
Yeah,
cats.
I did spend most of yesterday in my office with the door closed because I wanted to get some writing done. And if I leave the door open, Londo thinks he's a dog sometimes, and he chews on boxes, chews on wires, and he acts like a dog. And then Erin just likes to knock everything everywhere you can go. And if I have a little crinkly package, she will gnaw at it and tear it apart because she thinks her treats are in it. And I'm like, Erin, the package says, it's coconut. And then, well, all right.
She say, what's a coconut?
Yeah. And she'll just tear at the package. So I had the door closed yesterday, and they weren't with me too much. So I think that's why they're down here now. At least they're not tearing the house apart. Anyway, back to part 3 on storytelling on the plains, on our story about Camp Sheridan and the Spotted Tail Agency. If you need to get caught up, just go look at part 1 and part 2. And at the end of our last episode, we were talking about how the military was finally told, the Army that was stationed at Camp Sheridan, were finally told that they need to enforce the terms of the treaty because they, you hang out with people, you make little exceptions here and there, and or you don't do this, that, or the other thing because it's actually stupid, and then some message comes down on high. You and I know that from working at the shelter. We're like, yeah, we don't do that because it doesn't work. And then they're like, well, no, now you have to do it. Okay, but it doesn't work. And then we'll do it for 4 or 5 months. And someone from on high will be like, yeah, that's not working. Stop doing it. All right, thanks. We already knew that. So that's kind of where we're at in the story right now. So I'm going to read again from that Soden gentleman that we've been quoting from all along. So one particularly dramatic case of some of the issues they had out there illustrates the zeal with which this law ended up being enforced. Captain Mills confronted a party of 76 miners east of what is present-day Gordon, Nebraska. The miners, originally from Sioux City, Iowa, had previously been confronted by a small contingent of soldiers from Fort Randall in South Dakota. The soldiers were outnumbered by the miners, who completely disregarded the soldiers' warnings. The soldiers sent an urgent message to Camp Sheridan requesting that reinforcements be sent immediately. Mills responded by arriving with an entire company of cavalrymen and, more menacingly, a Gatling gun. Early in the morning on May 19th, he surprised the miners and proceeded to destroy all of their wagons, weapons, and equipment.
So for those who don't know what a Gatling gun is, it was basically what we call a machine gun. Or I think in these days it was still a hand crank Gatling gun, so you'd crank it almost like a bicycle wheel, and it just keep firing. Yeah. As long as you kept feeding it bullets, it just keep firing and firing and firing, which was never seen at that time. So that
this
that
is
would
overkill.
Well, and even nowadays, I've been to a couple of like war museums and weapon museums, and you see it. The replicas, they still look terrifying. I can't imagine that just going off.
Yeah,
because you just keep cranking it, and the bullets just keep going. So yeah.
And I've heard one be fired.
Yep, I've heard it. Yep.
And that's terrifying. And even when you run out of ammunition, it's still smoking, and you can still hear it cranking because it's still trying to put bullets out, because you can't just stop it on a dime, so it still rotates a little bit. So you hear that clinking, and it's a terrifying weapon. Alcohol was illegal here until June 4th, 1875, and a letter reversed that, and the soldiers could get drunk. So think about that. They're not allowed to drink at Camp Sheridan. Now they can. They're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing else to do.
Well, and when you say it was illegal for the soldiers, I'm sure not the officers.
Oh, yeah. Of course not. Of course not. They probably had a little drawer or cabinet.
I'm sure there's some that got around.
Yeah.
After all, we mentioned that Spotted Tail, the agency, was worried about his people getting drunk.
Yes.
So obviously the alcohol was around.
Yeah. So of course you're going to end up with the idiocy of intoxication you now need to deal with as well. I would think it probably was around, but the soldiers were kind of keeping it on the down low, and no one was getting super drunk or anything.
Old bathtub hooch.
Yeah. But now it's legal, so we're going to have issues. Again, I don't excuse the behavior, but it's not surprising that you start having those issues because you go back to that time. There's literally nothing else out here and nothing else to do. And now you just said, oh yeah, booze is legal, have at it. You're going to start having issues. So Camp Sheridan's relative isolation from urban settings resulted in a paucity of entertainment options. Soldiers had to improvise their own amusements and diversions, and Camp Sheridan possessed no regular post library or school. That was one of the things that surprised me, was that I get it, there was no school because you're military, so, but that there wasn't even some kind of library. Then I started thinking about, I remember when, after 9/11, the folks in Afghanistan and Iraq, they were like, we've got like 20 books in our library over here in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I happened to have like 50 books. And they didn't care. They were like, we don't care. We literally have 20 books. We've all read the same 20 books. We want to read something different. And so I sent a box of like 50 or 60 books. And then all of a sudden they had almost 1,000 books, at least in Baghdad. That's where I sent my books to. Mm-hmm. So they had something to read. And I started thinking about that you go back to the 1870s, you probably not got a lot of soldiers that read a lot anyway. And it's not even an option for someone to say, I don't read a lot, there's nothing to do, let's see what's in the post library. Oh, we don't have one. I guess I'll go drink some beer.
Yeah.
So, and newspapers as well, I'm going to get to this in a second, but it takes a while to get stuff out here. Even if your paper publishes every day, it's going to take a while to get here, and you're going to read it cover to cover in one day, and it's going to be a while before you get another one.
Well, and I wonder how they got it out here, if it was more like they got like a whole week's worth, or like a whole month's worth. I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't know where the printing presses were. I know when I first moved to Lincoln, Nebraska in '88, when I went as a college student, the copy of the New York Times I could get had a different front cover than the one my mom could read in New York. And that's when I learned that they printed it in Chicago. For out west. And I thought about the fact that my hometown paper covered 9 or 10 different counties, and they're way more populated than out here. And so there were several different editions of my hometown paper, and we got the late final because it was delivered just in my hometown. And they all had different front covers, page 2 and page 3. And those were all specific to those particular counties. So that's how that happened. And I'm like, I don't know, were they, how that
like that,
something like that, was it that sophisticated in the 1870s? And even then, let's say you were getting your New York Times out of Chicago. How long did it take to get it here? And are you getting, because if the train only comes once a week, you're going to get a week's worth of papers at one time. So the Post did pay for a number of subscriptions to newspapers and other periodicals, but again, it's still not enough. It's not like today where every day you're going to have the paper and you can read it, or you can read it at night instead of going drinking.
You like the good old Sunday papers.
Yeah.
But most people don't even remember that if you weren't like a 90s kid or below.
Yeah.
You don't remember that you didn't get the news on a minute-to-minute basis like you do now?
No.
You got it at the end of the night, or if you're one of those afternoon people, you might get the local afternoon news. But most of the time it's at the night, and then you don't really get the major national news until Sunday. And you really didn't get it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was just local news up until Sunday.
Yep.
And you had the Sunday national news, and then you were caught up. So you went a whole week without really knowing what was going on in the world.
Yep. And so I was a kid that grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I delivered my local paper. every night, my grandma watched NBC News, the Chuck and Sue out of New York City on NBC. So you're getting New York City heavily news, even though I lived an hour and a half north of New York City in the Hudson Valley. You're getting more New York City-centric news at 5:30. 6 o'clock was Tom Brokaw with the nightly news, and then she watched the 11 o'clock news as well. That was what she got for any kind of national or international news. And then our newspaper covered more local stuff. They did have national news, but it wasn't as much, and it wasn't as instant as everything is today. And you may not know, anything. I mean, granted, when Reagan got shot, everything on TV was interrupted for that, so everybody knew that was going on.
Same with 9/11.
Yeah, but if you had, let's say, oh my God. I'm thinking of Sarkozy now because he went to jail in France. The president of France, let's say he got shot. Right now, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're in, 1978. If you don't watch the 6 o'clock news, you're probably not going to know about it till tomorrow. That's just how it worked. And in reality, I think in some ways I wish we would go back to that, because having that stuff instantly, you end up refreshing. Is there any new news? Is there any new news? And you don't. So even though we actually live statistically in a much safer time than when I was a child in the 70s, it doesn't seem like that because everything is on the news.
We're all basket cases.
Yeah, and then you get hooked into that. You're like, oh my God, this person got shot. Oh, there's 4 shot and 3 dead, 1 wounded. Okay, and then you keep refreshing. Oh, another person died. Oh, another person. And we get into that where maybe maybe we need to go back to finding a balance with that. Not all the way back to the 1870s where I don't know what's going on in the world for a month, but something a little better that's not constantly instant. Anyway, back to the 1870s. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and other major holidays were celebrated as festively as could be managed. All labor except essential fatigue and guard duties was suspended on those days. In light of possible hostilities that might erupt between soldiers and Indians, the former were prohibited from traveling beyond the limits of the post unless they were issued an authorized pass. So during those days when everything was, just light duty, you're also being confined to camp. So you can't even go out and go hunting or maybe ice fishing or just go for a little walk away from the camp. You can't even do that. So again, are you seeing where we're coming up with possible issues to allowing folks to drink too now? Soldiers were also not allowed into any house or teepee without the permission of the occupants. This is probably a better rule in my opinion, because before the soldiers could just walk on up to somebody's teepee and walk on in, or their little, if they had something more than a teepee, they could just walk into the house. And technically, that's in the Constitution that you can't do that because it's a form of housing soldiers. But they're like, oh, well, it doesn't count because they're Indians. So at least this part of the treaty being enforced, I'm glad they finally started enforcing that. However, camp officers often entertained the Indian leadership. So Spotted Tail, Red Cloud, and Young Man Afraid of His Horses were frequent dinner guests, with Spotted Tail being a particular favorite at the officers' headquarters. Both Spotted Tail and Red Cloud were trying to look out for the best interests of their people, and we can debate that all day long, whether they were or weren't, but we're not going to do that right now. That's for another debate for another time. But both of them are at their agencies, and now gold is being discovered in the Black Hills. The land supposedly belongs to the Sioux, but the government now wants to buy the Black Hills. So they're starting to enforce the treaty. And then you've got, I believe it was Custer went up and scouted the land. They found gold. And then the miners start going. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we don't care that that's part of the Greater Sioux Nation. Now we want it. We want it. And when is enough? So Spotted Tail and Red Cloud selected 12 young men to accompany a U.S. delegation to visit the bands of Sioux who are living in the Black Hills, to let them know a grand council is going to be held where they will consider the sale of the land to the military. As was custom, each band was supposed to be represented by their chief or headman. And there was also some confusion about where the Grand Council was going to take place. And I'm going to read from Wilson's article again. When the commission arrived at the Red Cloud Agency on September 4th, 1875, it found misunderstanding between the Red Cloud and Spotted Tail agencies as to the place of meeting, the former insisting that the council be held at Red Cloud, and Spotted Tail insisting that it should be held on Chadron Creek, 25 miles from Red Cloud Agency. And at the same time, distance from the same distance from the Spotted Tail Agency. So Spotted Tail basically said it should be here on Chadron Creek because it's between both of our agencies and roughly the same distance, and that's fair. Their differences were so bitter that for a time it was doubtful whether a Grand Council would be convened. On the 17th of September, however, an agreement was reached, and the place stipulated was an open plain about 8 miles from the Red Cloud Agency on the White River, directly north of Crow Butte. The Grand Council opened on September 20th at the place designated. So though it was peaceful at the Spotted Tail Agency, not everyone was happy with the situation. In the spring of 1876, many Oglala and Cheyenne left the Red Cloud Agency and headed north to join the camps of Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. So they had been on the agency, and they were just like, yeah, okay, no, we're not staying here anymore. Left. Most of the Brules remained at the Spotted Tail Agency, but a large chunk of the Minneconjous and Sans Arcs headed north as well. So you're starting to see some dissatisfaction with agency life, and that, we agreed to be at these agencies, and you're supposed to provide for us, and all this other land is supposed to be part of the Great Sioux Nation, but now you want it, and you're breaking another treaty. So why should we stay and deal with this aggravation over and over? They're looking at the long picture, and they're like, screw it, we're leaving, and we're going to go join the camps of Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. So Crazy Horse also visited the Spotted Tail Agency on September 4th, 1877, before going back to Camp Robinson the next day, where he was killed. He had come to talk with Spotted Tail, his uncle, and I believe Spotted Tail was his biological uncle. I haven't looked enough into it, but I believe it wasn't a case of how Native Americans tend to call relatives brother, uncle, that kind of thing. Okay. I have a very good Lakota friend, and she calls me sister all the time, and we're not. But I think Spotted Tail was actually his biological uncle. I could be wrong on that. I just haven't been able to I know the information's probably out there somewhere. I'm just not looking in the right place for it. So the following month, on October 29th, both agencies were forcibly relocated to South Dakota to live on the Dakota Reservation. The Brules were escorted by one of the cavalry company stationed at Camp Sheridan. The Oglala apparently passed by first, and Crazy Horse's parents or family, I've heard both. I think it was just his parents, left his remains with Spotted Tail. And we don't know where Crazy Horse was buried, but the Beaver Valley area is said to be one of his final resting places. And since I wrote this, because we're working like 5 weeks ahead of time, I've been reading other stuff, and I have come across a picture that was taken of his how they put the dead up on the wooden slats, and it looks like a funeral pyre, but they don't burn him. Just his body was up there, and there is a picture of that. So we do know that his body stayed there for some time and then was eventually taken, and we don't know where he was buried. But there are also lots of stories that I come across of different times of Crazy Horse coming down to visit Spotted Tail for a while and then leaving, just because it was his uncle, his mentor, and Crazy Horse had another mentor, and he was killed in a battle. And after that happened, he kind of started relying a little bit more on Spotted Tail for some advice. So he never lived at the Spotted Tail agency, but he would pop down there often and, chat and hang out and stuff. And Spotted Tail was probably the most often. That's not the right words. He was the person who would most often talk to Crazy Horse about settling on the agency, and trying to convince him that this would be best overall. So in 1878, the Spotted Tail Agency was forced to move again to what is now the Pine Ridge and Rosebud reservations. And today, the Ogallala of Red Cloud reside at Pine Ridge, and the Brule are at Rosebud. So they got agencies of their own that eventually became the reservations. And the Pine Ridge Reservation is today continues to be one of the poorest places in the country.
Yep.
You and I could go on forever about what happened there, and it's just really sad that we just put them on there and forgot about them and didn't care about them. And then you fast forward 140 years now, and you wonder why there's all the issues there, because the issues were there then, and Spotted Tail was trying to mitigate those issues, and then. Well, now we're going to put you in an even more remote area, and you have even more issues. And
this is still before Wounded Knee, so.
Yes. So with the forced relocation came the obsolescence of Camp Sheridan. Camp Robinson was being expanded to become the permanent Fort Robinson. Fort Niobrara was built to serve the Rosebud Reservation. Arguments were made to keep Camp Sheridan open, but to no avail. It was shut down in 1880 and dismantled. At its peak, Camp Sheridan had 7 companies, and the last soldiers left on May 2nd, 1881. So 3 months later, on August 2nd, a public auction was held at the now-abandoned post. Lieutenant Charles H. Watts oversaw the auction. The commissary storehouse, the laundress quarters, all the remaining lumber, and about 35 tons of hay were all sold. All remaining items were removed afterwards. Its flagstaff was moved to reside with the agent at Pine Ridge. And for those of you who don't know what the agent is, every agency had an agent assigned. And that agent was usually a white person who spoke the language. And because most tribes didn't have, a head person, well, we're going to put a head white person there, and everything goes through them. So you can't have things like Spotted Tail or Red Cloud popping over to the commander's house anymore and directly advocating for his people. That you got to go through the agents. I kind of agree with the Lakota at the time and today that just removes your own personal agency again, that you can't advocate for yourself. You have to go talk to this white dude who then goes and talks on your behalf. And it just makes you feel like less of a
like
person.
A lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm with Shakespeare, kill all the lawyers.
In 1882, the last remnants, which proved a camp once existed there, which were the graves, were moved to the Fort Robinson Cemetery. And for anybody that goes to Fort Robinson, you can still go to the Fort Robinson Cemetery. The bodies have been moved. They're all back in central Nebraska. So there aren't even any graves there of anyone of any kind anymore. So these poor folks got moved to Fort Robb, and then at some point, because I forget the date, but Fort Robb moved them back to central Nebraska. So Wilson also wrote something I wanted to share. It is proposed to create in the Pine Ridge country of northwest Nebraska a suitable memorial to the Sioux Nation, and to include in this a memorial to Dull Knife and his band of Northern Cheyenne. It was here in this picturesque area, with its beautiful woods and its many clear streams flowing north through the deep-cut valleys into the White River, that the vast majority of the great Sioux Nation passed through the bitter and humiliating experiences that characterized their transition from monarchs of the northern plains, the Black Hills, and the eastern slopes of the Big Horn and eastern Montana Rockies, to the status of reservation Indians. This rugged area, the outpost of a still more rugged country to the north and west, was the stage on which were enacted the closing scenes in the life of the Sioux Nation as a free people. The late Gutzon Borglum, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, appropriately designated them as the Romans of the Plains.
Gutzon.
Gutzon.
It's Gutzon.
Okay.
Gutzon.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
He's a jerk. Who cares?
Yeah, that's what I was also thinking, is there's a part of me that doesn't care if I got his name right, because he was a big jerk. Here in this region, those notable statesmen of the Sioux Nation, Red Cloud and Spotted Tail, performed their greatest services to their people and to the white race. Here, young man afraid of his horses, by an act of supreme courage and wisdom, proved himself one of the most remarkable men of his tribe. Here, Crazy Horse, unconquerable in spirit and resourceful in war, met his tragic fate. And here, Dull Knife and his band, with iron resolution and incredible valor, chose death in combat to death by disease in Indian territory. The proposed memorial is to include a monument to perpetuate the memory of the great Sioux Nation. The suggested location for it is in the heart of Pine Ridge country, by the side of a paved highway with a lofty ridge of butte rock partially covered by pine trees as a background. In addition, several smaller monuments are to be erected, each to commemorate a place of historic interest as mentioned above, and in most cases a great chief as well. It is proposed to locate these smaller monuments at the sites of the Red Cloud and Spotted Tail agencies, the site of Red Cloud's camp on Chadron Creek, where he and his band were captured October 23, 1876, the sites of the two meetings of the Grand Council of September 1875, held between the Sioux Nation and the Allison Commission regarding the sale of the Black Hills, the last camp of Crazy Horse at the time of his surrender at Fort Robinson, and the site where Dull Knife and his band made their last stand, January 22nd, 1879. These smaller monuments will constitute an enduring witness through succeeding centuries, which contribute its chapter to the dramatic story of the last heroic struggle of a proud, liberty-loving race against the ruthless aggression of many alien peoples seeking freedom, opportunity, wealth, and empire, who, themselves having fled domination in the old world, set up domination in the new. The smaller monuments were indeed erected, and you can go and travel and see those, and the one commemorating the Cheyenne breakout is much bigger. but it was built in the same fashion as the others. So I believe you've seen some of these, Connor. They're made of stone.
Almost all of them, actually.
Yeah.
Throughout my life, I've seen the yellow.
The yellow knife and war bonnet.
War bonnet. I've seen what's the one there's one that is just go out past Fort Robinson heading towards Harrison, I believe.
That's the Cheyenne one. That's the great one. Big one. Yeah.
So I've seen
that's the Cheyenne one. And if you are ever heading north to, so let's say you leave Fort Rob and you're coming back to Scotts Bluff and you get to that T intersection, because I don't know roads, but you get to that T intersection and you turn right to head back towards Scotts Bluff. If you turn left, I'm not sure how far it is. It's a couple miles at least down the road, but there's a sign. It's a historical marker, and it talks about all the buttes in the area. So it's a 4-way intersection, and you can just keep going straight to Shadron, or you can turn right, and right there on the corner of the road is that monument. And when I was there one day, I happened to look, and there was a wooden sign that said Treaty Tree, and pointing toward the other way. So I'm like, oh, what the heck is that? So I went that way, and there's a sign there. That's that meeting that they had about the sale of the Black Hills. And there is, oh gosh, is it Sioux? It is Sioux County, right? I think it's the Sioux County Historical Society. Are they quite? Yeah, I think it's Sioux County. It's a historical committee. They raised money to have a little monument there. There's a historical marker there for the treaty tree, and then there's one of those markers. And I think I've seen most of them. I have not actually been up to the marker where Spotted Tail and Camp Sheridan were.
And then there's Yellow Medicine up by Montrose.
That's yellow hair.
That's yellow hair.
Yellow hair, yeah. And his grave is actually there. Oops, almost fell off my own table. So unfortunately, they dismantled everything, and they tried to do it again with Fort Robinson. We're going to get to it. I am slowly working on getting that all done. I want to have it all done before we start recording it.
But they did try to do it for Robinson, but they failed, thankfully.
Yes. So short version for right now till we get into the big long story, because most people get confused when they go to Fort Rob. They don't know that the State Historical Society, Game and Parks, and the university all own and maintain different parts of Fort Robinson. And everyone it's funny because I will hear behind the scenes, man, why can't people get it right? And then the phone will be like, oh, yes, no, you need to talk to they're always polite on the phone, but I can imagine it gets frustrating when you call the wrong number and you think that, there's one overarching entity taking care of the entire fort, which is not what happened. And I forget the order. I think it was the university first. It might have been the Historical Society first. I got to go back and look at my notes. But basically, the fort was used up through World War II, and they didn't need it anymore, so they started to demolish it. And somebody got...
Everybody's like, whoa, hey,
yeah, they're like, no. So basically, those three entities got together and preserved as many of the buildings. It was like, the Historical Society owns and maintains the old commander's house, the big white building, and then most of the stuff on the other old parade grounds they maintain as well. They mow. So most people don't know at Fort Rob II, when you go see the remnants of the German POW camp, the folks from the State Historical Society mow the grass out there and at the Red Cloud Agency. So you can walk all out there and stuff. But they basically all work together to maintain stuff. And I did read an article like a month or so ago that they're raising funds now to erect whatever building was gone and put an exact replica back up. Because, that building's gone, but they want to put it back up. And I saw something a couple of weeks ago. I know the swimming pool's been in horrible shape for a long time, and they finally demolished it, and hopefully they'll have a new one in the same place next summer for when people go out there.
That'll be fun.
But we'll get into the detail of all of that next time. It's just sad that, Camp Sheridan's gone, so you can't even see that. And we never really did know the exact location of either one because it got demolished, and no one thought, in 1877, we should probably mark the exact location of this. But we got the general area because there's enough descriptors that you can guess the general area. But it would have been neat to see what it looked like compared to Camp Robinson. So that's it for our 3-parter on Camp Sheridan and the Spotted Tail Agency. And I know now that we're done with this, I'm going to read something next week and I'll be like, oh man, I should have included it. Yep, because I just didn't know about it. And I have found over the years that you got to write what you have when you have it. And if you find more information later, it's the same thing Thomas Green did when he was looking for when he was trying to figure out where that old Fort John was. And when he found more information 12 years later, he wrote another story for the State Historical Society.
So I have addendums.
Yes. So if we find more info, I'll include it when we get to the Fort Robb stuff. But I come across stuff all the time that I didn't know. And I really, really like The Journey of Crazy Horse. I've even thought about doing a whole podcast episode just on that book. And Joseph Marshall III, he passed away in April or May, but he read the book. He wrote the book, he read the book, and you get this different hit. It's different when you're reading it and then the guy who wrote the book is reading it. You get different inflections, and you can hear in his voice the bits that are super important to him. And it's just this really, really neat book. And I learned this, I've read the book twice and listened to the audiobook once. And every time I've learned something new about Crazy Horse. And that's has nothing to do with me not paying attention, but you get to different places in your life where this thing was super important 10 years ago when you read it in a book, and then today you're like, oh, how did I miss that the last time? You still read it, it just didn't have as much of a profound effect on you because you weren't in that state at that point in time. Yeah. So I have thought about doing that, but I don't know how much we want to get into book reviews and stuff, but
could be a boring day one.
Yeah. It'd just be like, you know what, Connor, I forgot to write anything for today, so we're just going to flip through this book. And I don't know as well how much you can do without getting dinged as, for copyright stuff, but I do know, as an example, Behind the Bastards, they will sit and they will read large chunks of books when they do their book reviews. But they're specific book reviews, so I think there's little leeway to that. Anyway, come back next time. This episode should be airing sometime around Thanksgiving, I believe. Might be just after. We've got 4. No, it'll be after Thanksgiving. So if y'all are listening to this, maybe you're listening to it on Thanksgiving so you don't have to listen to Family Feuds. Enjoy us rambling for 48 minutes and come back next week and we'll tell you something new. For now, I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.